Field Marshal Montgomery's help in defeating the Nazis in North Africa and Europe was one of the highlights of the war. Monty's everyday transportation was handled by one of the world's most awesome cars, the 1937 Rolls-Royce Phantom III. Field Marshal Montgomery's remarkable car is now owned by Harry Clark of Temecula, California.
Monty was a very colorful character, very strong-willed and rigid gentleman who had just a pretty phenomenal military career, ending up as the head of the Imperial Forces.
It's no accident that an upper-crust British field marshal like Monty would drive a Rolls. The de Havilland Aircraft Company designed the car for their chairman, Alan Butler. But when the Second World War broke out, the car was loaned to the British War Department.
Montgomery had the car for a very long time. As a matter of fact, through the war, it accumulated over 300,000 miles. So Monty really fell in love with it. It became part of his persona and was called Monty's Rolls-Royce.
Rolls-Royce motor cars debuted in December of 1904. The quality of design and engineering surpassed anything else available at the time. Among its owners were Lawrence of Arabia, Tsar Nicholas II, and members of the British royal family. Because Monty's Rolls was originally designed for an aircraft company chairman, it reflects the technology and the impact of aerodynamics on a car.
Here you'll see the top of the V windshield all the way back, and the trunk is integrated beautifully into this curve with aircraft-type releasing mechanisms, where you open up the trunk and voila, the spare tire and wheel are back here. As opposed to cars of the period, the spare wheels or spare tires were mounted on the sides of the car, which really destroyed the lines of the car. They actually tested it in a wind tunnel, which is pretty amazing for the time period. So you've got this forward-sloping V windshield, very much like a bow of a boat.
In the early 40s, Montgomery was chasing German Field Marshal Rommel across North Africa. When Monty returned to England, the British-made car was still around to drive him to meetings with Eisenhower and Churchill. 2 days before D-Day, the rain was pouring down in sheets as a furious storm brewed in the English Channel. General Eisenhower was depending on the solidly engineered Cadillac to drive him to Southwick House to make the final decision on D-Day. For Field Marshal Montgomery, it was the high-end luxury of the Rolls-Royce that he was counting on to get him to this famous meeting. The Rolls made it through the storm no problem that day. Hell, it always made it.
On the dash are the cigarette burns from Churchill. Churchill and Montgomery had a contentious relationship. I believe it's kind of a little snub on Montgomery. Yeah.
But even Churchill would have to admit, this Rolls-Royce has a one-of-a-kind design.
There's nothing like it anywhere on the planet. And it does have a number of engineering advances that really do make it unique.
Cool. Now, we've been bragging on some of the big V8 engines in these cars that FDR and Eisenhower drove. But check out this engine. The Rolls-Royce Phantom III has a massive V12 with redundant systems throughout. It has 12 cylinders with 24 spark plugs. It also has 2 distributors with 24 ignition leads coming from each, and 2 coils and 2 fuel pumps. The fuel and ignition systems can be operated from side A or side B, or both. Talk about ensuring reliability. One more thing. Did I mention to you that these Rolls-Royces never broke down? And I do mean never. Really?
They set their cars off on reliability runs so that they could become famous for being reliable automobiles. I think you may have heard the expression, fail to proceed. That's kind of a joke amongst Rolls-Royce people, that they don't break down, they just fail to proceed.
FTP, failure to proceed. I kind of like that. But an FTP was a pretty rare occurrence for these cars, due to the incredible engineering.
But the car made so perfectly as a Rolls Royce. I can guarantee you that Montgomery was not the only one driving one of these beauties.
These luxury cars were clearly manufactured for the recreation of the ruling class. Even the sworn enemy of the British Empire, Emperor Hirohito, had a Rolls in his collection. Field Marshal Montgomery traveled as far as Italy and Africa to fight back the Nazi war machine.
The tide has turned, and we are beating the Germans and coming towards the final climax of the war.
After the war, he would go on to help form NATO. He was so enamored with his Rolls that he bought the car from the War Department. Monty kept it until 1962, when his chauffeur passed away. Today, Monty's car is a priceless piece of automotive history. And Rolls-Royce continues to produce some of the most expensive and prestigious cars around. Owning the new Rolls-Royce Phantom can set you back a cool $350,000. But there was another tough guy who did as much as any of these generals and politicians to win the war. And this guy didn't need a luxury caddy or Rolls to get around town. For